We start this segment with Russia's capital, Moscow, being hit by drone strikes early this morning, with at least 2 people injured and several buildings damaged. The Kremlin is blaming the attacks on Ukraine, a claim denied by the Ukrainian authorities. The Russian government military says 8 drones were used in the strikes, all of which were shot down by air defense or taken out with signal jamming technology. The Ukrainian capital itself was hit overnight by a large attack from Russia, with air defense shooting down more than 20 Russian drones. Our chief correspondent, John Cookson, reports now from the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, close to the Russian border.
Russian forensic experts collect drone fragments, one of a swarm of flying bombs that hit an upmarket district of Moscow. Suddenly, the war, which might have seemed far away for some Muscovites, was now on their doorstep. Moscow's mayor said 2 people were injured in the early morning attack. A Telegram channel, which has good sources among Russian security services, said around 25 drones attacked Moscow. More than 10 were shot down. Ukraine hasn't publicly acknowledged launching attacks against targets inside Russia, although US intelligence says it's likely Kiev was responsible. Meanwhile, Russia launched another pre-dawn attack on Ukraine's capital Kyiv today. Air defences worked to stop drones in what's been a relentless wave of daylight and nighttime bombardments. Most drones and missiles were shot down, but intense waves mean some get through. This local resident said, "The house shook a lot. It was very scary. It's best to be in shelters because you really don't know where the drones will fly. We will hold on," she said. This war isn't all about rockets and drones actually striking targets. Just the threat of it is part of Russia's campaign to sap morale. Ukraine is now using the same tactic. And it's easy to see what relentless Russian drone and rocket attacks can have on a city like Kharkiv and its surrounding areas. This place was once home to 1.5 million people. Now it resembles something of a ghost town. However, at a ceremony to mark the fact 60 Ukrainian journalists have died in the conflict, there was an air of resilience.
On behalf of myself, I can tell you for sure that as far as I know, that our society, our country, our people, when I was so united before, that extremely high rate of solidarity, of resilience, of our will to continue our fight and our belief in the victory.
Today's drone attacks on Moscow shows how vulnerable the Russian capital is, meaning more are likely. Cities across Ukraine are braced for a response. John Cookson, Arise News, Kharkiv, Ukraine.
Well, for the very latest, we can speak now with Arise chief correspondent John Cookson, who is in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. John, great to see you. We just watched your package. Great as always, very detailed. But speaking of details are very sketchy about the drone attack on Moscow. What have you been able to piece together?
Hi, guys. Great to be on Newsday. Well, the information coming out of Moscow is very slim at the moment. And one can expect that. This is a country at war. They're not giving too many details. But at least one drone struck a residential building on the outskirts of Moscow, and then 2 other residential buildings more in the heart of Moscow, in the upmarket area where Putin's cronies live. They were also struck. So one can see the symbolism of why these drones were sent to that part of town. That is as much really as we know. The Russians claiming that the Ukrainians carried out the attack in response to recent Russian attacks in Ukraine of a similar nature, especially in Kiev and elsewhere. And here in Kharkiv, I mean, today, I'm sitting in a hotel lobby at the moment trying to get a good internet connection, but outside there's an air raid alert on, one of 5 that we've already heard already today, and people, going about their normal lives have to suddenly stop and go into shelters beneath buildings. And this has been going on for months now. And this is all part of the campaign, is it not, to reduce morale and upset people? Because I've only been here a few days, but it's a wearing experience, especially when these strikes come at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, or even midday, like yesterday in Kiev. It does sap your mental ability and interrupt sleep. And, on a daily basis, as here in Kharkiv, I can't imagine what families must be going through at the moment.
Okay, so John, a lot of people around the world are getting tired of this, and they're just hoping the war will come to an end. But it looks like there's a potential for escalation of things now. What are the risks? Please help us understand.
Look, NATO is very, very nervous at the moment because the deal was that the Ukrainians shouldn't get any equipment that will be used on Russian soil. And here we have another example today of a strike on Moscow itself. Not a serious one. No one was killed, thank God. But there is the very distinct possibility of this getting out of hand. And the Ukrainians have denied that they were behind the attack, but who else? And American intelligence has hinted that strikes in the past have been conducted from Kyiv with or without Zelensky's knowledge, possibly carried out by the Ukrainian Secret Service. But look, it's these kinds of attacks that can get really out of hand. They can strike a very sensitive target, and either side, the Russians or the Ukrainians, then respond with long-range rockets, and suddenly you've got some kind of conflagration going on. So, as I say, there'll be in many NATO capitals, including Washington today, there'll be a lot of nervousness about the apparent escalation in this war of the cities, which is going on using drones.
Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, John, that a lot of people around the world thought this is the worst that Russia can do without going into things that they're not allowed to use, like nuclear weapons. So do you think this could get worse? Because it looks like this is the worst it's going to be because it's dragged on for so long. Do you think it could get worse?
Oh, my word, yes. Absolutely, it can get worse. And I'm sure that Zelensky is being pushed at the moment by certain people around him to get on with the great counterattack that's been so well publicized. And we had the prospect of a spring offensive, then a summer offensive. Zelensky coming out yesterday saying that we are ready. I'm not sure that those words are honest words from the Ukrainian president. I'm not sure that they are ready. And alternatively, certainly those around Putin are saying to him, look, come on, man, invade, get it over, take over Ukraine, and let's move on, basically. These two horrible scenarios are very much possibilities at the moment. And we're in this kind of strange period at the moment where both sides appear to be hanging back, but there's the spectre that something terrible might happen in the future to spark some kind of major conflagration. And as you say, Russia is a nuclear power, and I have no doubt whatsoever that Putin would be prepared to use strategic nuclear weapons on some city or some town in Ukraine as part of an escalation of this conflict.
Well, John, it seems as though Joseph Borrell, the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs, also shares that outlook because he's saying that Moscow might not stop until it wins the special military operation, which started in February last year. Just wondering how significant you think that statement was regarding this crisis.
Well, I mean, the statement is absolutely spot on. And it's also important to say at this moment, there are peace talks, believe it or not. There are peace proposals being discussed in various capitals. You've got Zelensky's peace plan, which basically says that the Russians must pull out totally from Ukrainian soil. You've got the Chinese peace plan, which says that Russia basically keeps what it's got and we'll see about the future. We've got the South African peace plan. We've got an Iraqi peace plan. And both sides are aware of what's going on in terms of some kind of settlement, which possibly will end in a kind of armistice like there is between North and South Korea. And they're trying to get as much territory as they can before inevitably this peace process comes about. And don't forget, and certainly Zelensky will not have forgotten, that there's a window at the moment before the American election cycle really kicks in, and that's to November of this year. It won't mean an end to US support for Ukraine, but certainly things will go into a bit of a deep freeze. So we've got these coming months for the Ukrainians to try to get back as much territory as they can. Again, it all increases the temperature.
Well, John Cookson, Arise News international correspondent, thank you so much for your insight, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon.